Hello, friends. Welcome aboard the Round Trip Stories podcast, where we share stories of moving around the world and back again, reflecting on the lessons we've learned along the way. My name is Tracy.
And my name is Melissa, and we are so glad you're joining us for today's episode. Our next guest is Jaime Aparicio, Mexican entrepreneur, family guy, and lover of all things international. Jaime spent 8 years of his late teens and early 20s in the United States before returning to Mexico to reconnect with his family roots and to start his own business and young family. He had a sprinkling of time in Germany and Argentina as well. Jaime shares about how he reinvented himself and deepened his awareness of who he was while in the U.S. as a young man. So buckle your seatbelts and make sure your tray tables and seats are in their upright positions as part one of Jaime's round trip story gets ready for takeoff.
Well, right now we are interviewing Jaime Aparicio. And actually, I have he's a very special guest to me because he is actually my cousin, or my husband's cousin. So I've known Jaime for about 20 years, and I have had the pleasure of being part of both his groups of stories today and just hearing all about those. But I know that I am going to learn a lot today from his stories that he has chosen to share with us. So thank you, Jaime, for being with us.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Melissa, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, this is going to be a lot of fun. So to get us started, we just have some kind of introduction questions. So can you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and who your people are?
Right. So as Tracy said, my name is Jaime. I am Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico. I have 2 brothers. I'm the oldest one in my family. I'm the oldest grandchild as well on my dad's side of the family. And my name is Jaime. My dad's name was Jaime. My grandfather's name was Jaime. So I'm the third Jaime of the family, which is turned out to be quite special to me because I love these 2 men. I am married to my wife, Erica. I have 2 children, Alana, who just turned 6 years old at the beginning of this month, and Daniel, who will be 3 in 2 months. They're both awesome. I love them. They like me too.
Yay, that's good.
So, yeah, that's me. And I currently live in Puebla, which is also a special city for Tracy because she did some college work here. I have been living here for 2 years because of everything that changed during 2020, 2021. We decided that it was time to move from Mexico City to a quieter place where we had family closer. So we've been here for 2 years already. Back in the city where I grew up. I grew up here from the time I was about 3 till 18 when I moved away.
Okay, well, that is the perfect intro to my next question, actually. Tell us a little bit about, where you lived before moving abroad and then where you lived when you left your home country. Right.
So like I said, I grew up here in Puebla, and I did some an exchange program in Germany because I went to a German school here in Mexico. So when I was 15, I lived for 6 months in Germany. But it was when I turned 18 that I decided that I wanted to move away. I wanted to go to college somewhere else. And I had family in the U.S., so California became a top choice for me. I talked to my family in California, asked them if they'd be willing to take me in for a couple of years. They gracefully said yes.
Good.
And so I talked to everyone agreed, and I started packing my bags and planning to move away for what turned out to be an amazing 8 years of living abroad in California.
And what college did you attend?
Initially, I went to a community college in Fresno. I went to Fresno City College.
Okay.
I spent about 2 years there before I moved to do business school in Berkeley. But a funny thing about how that happened, because it happened so suddenly, you guys remember when reality TV became a thing, right? And
Yeah.
in Mexico, there was this big show. Well, this show was big everywhere. It was called Big Brother. Do you remember that? You know, everyone living in one house. So around the time that I decided to leave, the show was getting ready for their second season, and they were interviewing candidates and selecting candidates to live in the house. And so when I left, I talked to one of my friends on the phone when people went back to school, and he told me that girls at my class, they didn't believe that I just moved to California to go to school. They thought that I had been selected to Big Brother and that I was just making stuff up so that nobody knew that I was going to be on TV.
Oh, that is so funny.
Yeah.
All right,
That's hilarious.
Big Brother.
Oh my goodness.
So now we want to hear about how it all went, right? This is your question. This is our questions about you living in the United States and the adjustment and what you loved and what you learned. So tell us a story about your initial transition and adjustment.
Well, initially, one of the main challenges I think was I am a very social person, but I think back at when I was 18, living in Mexico, my lifestyle and the things I used to do with my friends were very different than the things I was allowed to do in the US at 18 years of age. So there were two things. One, I was underage, so I was limited in the things that I could do. And two, I didn't have many friends. So this combination was initially a hard thing to adjust to because I just like to go out, I like to do stuff, and I didn't have anyone to go out and do stuff with. So that I think that's what a lot of people go through really when they move, and it doesn't have to be specifically to moving away to a different country. It's just moving away. Period. You know, you have to start over.
Right.
And even though that was part of what I was looking for when moving away, I really wanted to go to a place where nobody knew who I was, and I wanted to figure out how I adjusted to that and how people responded to the person that I was back then.
Yeah, so not having, going from being a social senior in high school and all the freedom and independence and just confidence to being in a different place without all of your social people and stuff. Yeah, that's a huge adjustment.
Even though that was hard, it was part of what I was looking for. When I tell this story, I tell people that what I wanted to go through is to experience how people treated me who had just met me for the first time. And I tell people I wanted to find out if people treated me like a jerk, that means that I am really a jerk. But if the people treat me nice, it means that I'm a nice person to be around. Because after living for such a long time in one place, what I realized back then at age 18 is that people relate to you according to what they understand to be true about you from what they have learned throughout the years. And when people so when people go through specific changes, which I personally went through, they don't register them very well because to them it's very difficult to notice those changes. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to go to a place where nobody knew me, because I felt that I was slightly different and that people that I had grown up with had a hard time realizing that.
Yeah. So, Jaime, was your time in Germany as a 15-year-old, did that influence kind of your thought process at all?
I mean, it definitely had some influence. I don't think I could pinpoint to any specific experience or anything that I remember clearly from that period of time. But I mean, it was an amazing experience. It was the first time that I was completely independent. And I was pretty young.
Yeah.
I mean, at 15, to be in a place where you can go anywhere whenever you want, travel, just by yourself. It's a very interesting experience.
Yeah, it's like a teenage boy dream to go wherever they want. I think my son wants that right now.
Yeah. I didn't break anything.
Good. Nor yourself, nor any object. So that's good. All right, well, tell us a story about what was hard about moving to the U.S. and your situation there. And it can be any time. It doesn't have to necessarily be like when you first got there. It can be, any time.
I think that the hardest part throughout those 8 years was being away from my immediate family, mainly my parents, because my brother, I have two siblings, like I said, and my brother Jose, he was in California as well because he went to college as well, just as I did. But my youngest brother, he after a couple of years of living there, we lived together for maybe 2 to 3 years in Fresno. Myself, both my brothers and my mom, and then eventually my mom moved back with my youngest brother.
Moved back to Mexico?
Back to Mexico,
Okay.
yeah. And I stayed there along with my other brother. So being away from them was probably the hardest part. I remember something that my brother and I did the first Christmas when my mom and my youngest brother moved back. The immediate thought of spending the holidays was for us to go with you guys, to go with my cousins and my aunts and all the family that I did have there. But my brother and I decided to go out for dinner, just the two of us, because we wanted to sort of acknowledge the fact that while we were going to have close relatives whom we love there, and things were not going to be as bad as anyone would imagine, being away from our parents did have us like a very special meaning. We had always, we grew up with them. We had a relatively normal family. So we did realize that being away from them was going to be a challenge. And I still remember our dinner in downtown San Francisco. Yeah. So I'd probably say that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
Luckily, we did have close relatives there to support us. And so we were not that alone.
Were you able to stay in touch? Like technology back in 2000, the early 2000s was not what it is now. So how did you communicate with your parents when they were in Mexico and you were up here in California? Or how did you guys navigate that? I'm sure it was hard for them too.
Yeah, I remember talking to them quite a bit. What I don't remember is how.
Magic Jack?
Maybe.
Did you guys have a Magic Jack? Because we did.
When were those invented?
I'm not
In
sure.
the early 2000s.
Yeah, the early 2000s.
Yeah, I guess they would have been. Yeah, you're right.
Because
That's true.
we learned about
Yeah.
Magic Jack because of your family, Jaime. And then when we moved to China,
Right.
that's what we
True.
used.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, back then there was something similar to the voice functionality that some messaging apps have now. And it was a service very popular here in Mexico, which was a cell phone that was kind of like a walkie-talkie as well. And that was free.
Oh.
And I think it worked in the US. So what probably did happen, at some point is that I had one of those here and we could talk quite often with that. Maybe. I don't remember. That's a good question. But I do remember being in very close communication
Yeah.
with my parents. So that's
Yeah.
that was good. And also what helped is what I was saying earlier, which is I had other family members. I had people who loved me and whom I loved close by. So that helped.
All right, now tell us a story about something you loved about your time in the U.S.
I think that what I loved the most had a lot to do with the life stage that I was going through. My college experience was something wonderful. I just I loved it very, very much. Every time I go back to the Bay Area and I visit Berkeley, I'm filled with nostalgia because I really, really loved my years there. I walk through the streets and I just go back to the days when I would walk those streets every day.
Yeah.
You know, and going to school. I loved going to school. I loved my friends. I loved playing sports near campus. I loved living 4 blocks away from campus. So that was what I loved the most. And I do believe that the U.S. in particular has a very fun college experience. I mean, college is great everywhere, but I think that the experience in U.S. Universities is very, very special. And I was fortunate enough to live through it.
Yeah, that's so interesting that there's definitely like a campus life, a campus community around U.S. universities.
Yeah.
When I was in Puebla at the UDLA, the Universidad de las Americas, it was similar, but it wasn't as large or as a historic university like as Berkeley or USC or.
Not only that, the amount of people going to Berkeley that were locals is as a percentage of the student population is not as large as the one from UDLA, for example.
Yeah.
In the university here in Puebla, a lot of the students are from Puebla. And so I think that's something that makes it special because everyone wants to make new friends because a lot of people don't really know anyone when they land into college, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here, a lot of people do go to the college that is nearby. I'm talking about big campuses, right?
Yeah.
Or big universities.
Yeah.
So that was special. Sometimes I feel a little guilty because when I think about a stage of my life that I would love to repeat, it is that. It was amazing. So yeah, that's something that I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, I think that it kind of makes me think back to what you said about when you came to Fresno, because for high school in the first place, that you wanted to come someplace where nobody knew you and just to see kind of what that was like and how people would interact with you. And there is a lot of that happens when college students go away together, but everybody is starting fresh and building new relationships and new friendships. And so there is something unique that happens when lots of people at the same time are building new connections and interactions. And
that even reminds me of the expat communities internationally anyway, because everybody's new. You're trying to make friends, you're trying to make connections, and nobody knows you. So you can, right? I mean, they know you're with this and such company or this consulate or whatever, but or this school. But it's an opportunity to make new friends and learn new things. Well, thank you, Jaime. Yeah, university time. What a precious time. And don't feel guilty that you would like to go back to that time. I think a lot of us would.
The thing is, I feel guilty because I love my kids, but I'm, I wouldn't say I would like to live through my child's birth again. It was wonderful. It was wonderful, but and I'm pretty sure that 20 years from now, I'll look back at the time when my children were little.
Oh, yes.
And I'll want to repeat this.
Yes,
right?
That's what I feel.
I want to hold them again in my arms. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm not. It's not far enough yet. College seems far enough so that I can, cherish it.
Right. Jaime, as we finish up this portion and talking about the United States, is there anything else you learned about yourself or the world that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think that I think that's something that I learned, which is funny, but I believe it is very tightly associated with what we've been talking about, which is going through a stage where you don't know anyone, where you're by yourself. I think that something that I learned is to identify my inner voice and follow it. Two examples of that, which happened, in this period of time, where one, when I decided to go to Germany right after high school. I don't know if you know this, Tracy, but you were there when the idea came to my head. We went on a trip to the Grand Canyon, and we were hiking down, and we got to a point where we were tired enough, and we wanted to take a break, and I just lied down, and next to me were these people from Germany. They were speaking in German, and I had my eyes closed, and I listened to them, and I always wanted to take a break right after high school. I wanted to take a sabbatical. But during my last year of high school, I started thinking that maybe that was not going to be possible, because I knew that my parents were not going to be able to afford to have me spend a year without doing anything. And then when I heard them speak German, I sort of started putting ideas together and thinking, hey, if this is something that I truly want to do, I can just make it happen. I can work. I can save enough money so that maybe I won't be away for a year or 6 months, but I can go away. I can do this. And so I got up. We finished our trail, when I went back, I started working and saving everything I could, and I was able to give myself that opportunity of taking a break and doing something special and spending a lot of time by myself again, because I traveled alone. And then the second example of a time where I think that I learned to follow my inner voice was when I decided to go back, when I decided to leave the U.S. It was not the first time that I felt like leaving the U.S. Not necessarily back to Mexico, but just going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so this time when I decided it for sure, it was also a process. It was a process of what I wanted to do with my life, who I wanted to be with, and so the process of coming to terms with the idea of putting an end to that stage of my life of living abroad and going, not only moving away, but going back to where I was from, was a very interesting process as well. And I think that being by yourself, spending a lot of time with yourself, but really like with yourself, not being alone, but being with yourself, and trying to get to know yourself a lot better. That's something that I believe those years helped me accomplish, and I'm very, very thankful for that, because it's a tool that has come in handy.
Yeah.
Throughout the years.
I like that you distinguish the idea that there's a difference between just being alone and being with yourself. I think there are a lot of people, and lots of times that maybe all of us try to escape even from ourselves and don't want to face whatever it is we need to face. And so that's a good piece of wisdom.
Definitely.
So Jaime, one question that I did want to ask also is, if you could tell us, because you mentioned that you have your wife and your 2 kids, but tell us now, when did you meet your wife? Was that, and where does that fall into the timeline of your time here in the United States and then your time back in Mexico?
So it's a funny story because the story with my wife takes place when I lived in Mexico, where I grew up, takes place when I lived abroad, and it takes place when I came back. So the story is that we used to go to the same school when we were kids, up until 4th grade, I think. We were even in the same classroom. And then 4th or 5th grade, she decided to go to a different school, and I never saw her again. So we're talking, I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and I never saw her again until I was living in the Bay Area. And she did a program abroad to be a nanny. an au pair. And so she was living in Marin County, and we met up and we start, I think it had something to do with me being so far away from the place where I grew up, from the people that I grew up with, that I was really interested in connecting with her when I found out that she was there, because I had no connections with people from Mexico. And so
that totally makes sense.
Right. So we became friends. Her friends became friends with my friends. We put together a nice group of people, and then eventually we started going out while being in the U.S. And then when we decided to go back, we decided it together. She decided to go back. I decided to move back, and it was probably 2 years after moving back to Mexico that we decided to get married and move away to a different country. But that's probably Jaime's story part 2.
Okay. Well, that will be fun to hear when we get to part 2.
Thank you, Jaime, for your round-trip stories from the time you spent in the U.S. as a young adult. Your family and you took an opportunity to remake yourself in another country. When we move to another place, especially another country, we have to start over. It's a time to begin again, which can be refreshing, but it can also be frustrating not to be known. In this case, Jaime was looking for that. He developed a keen sense of who he was and his inner voice and desires. So, what happens when he returns to Mexico after 8 years in the U.S.? You'll have to make that return trip to our podcast for part 2 of Jaime's round trip story.
Want the podcast equivalent of early boarding and first class seating? Be sure to subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed this podcast, would you consider sharing it with your fellow globetrotting friends? We would love to encourage them too.
As this episode lands, we hope these stories have encouraged you, helped you find some more of your belongings, and made your baggage a little lighter.
Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll see you next time.